Happy New Year. As I started the beginning of this year, I debated on whether or not I wanted to start with a fun, simpler project or a big, more complicated one. And I'll be honest, after the year that we've all had, I thought maybe it was best to just ease in to the first video of the year with a fun, more simple project. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I made Lucy a new elevated dog bed. You may remember that a few years ago, I built Lucy another elevated dog bed, and now that we live in a house that actually has like multiple rooms, I moved that dog bed into a different room and I made her this one to go in the living room, and I made it to match the coffee tables that you may remember me building last year. This is kind of the kickoff to an entire living room remodel where I'm just kind of working on everything fitting together and being a little bit more cohesive in our space. So while we're starting out small, I do have some bigger projects to come, so be sure to subscribe and follow along so you don't miss out on all of those. But if you're ready to dive into this simple and fun dog bed project, let's get building. Come on, Luke.
This project is really easy to modify, so whether you have a small dog, a large dog, or a cat, you can easily change the sizing here to fit your needs. I'm sharing the plans on my website along with some tips for how to modify the size, so head to the link in the description for more details on the dimensions. To get started, I basically built a box to fit Lou's existing dog bed. I used 3/4 inch maple plywood for this, but any smooth plywood should work fine. I didn't need a whole sheet for this, and depending on the size that you make, you likely won't either, so feel free to dig around your scrap pile to find some pieces or just grab a half sheet from the store. I just happened to have a full sheet in the shop, so that's what I used. I first cut a corner off that was the rough size of Lucy's dog bed, which was around 26 inches by 36 inches. This will be the bottom where the bed will sit on. Then I ripped a couple of strips about 7 inches wide off the sheet to use as the sides. Again, if you have some scraps, they would work well for this. For the sides of the box, I cut the back, then the 2 short sides, and finally a front. These pieces, when fit together, will form the box for the bed to sit into. Now, I wanted to kind of open up one section so it was easier for Lou to climb into. So I marked out on a side and on the front a section to cut down. I used a speed square and marked a 15-degree line, then measured up from the bottom about 2 inches. Obviously, this is not an exact science, and you're welcome to adjust your shape and sizing as desired. I just thought that this design kind of looked a little modern-ish. Now, you can use a jigsaw to cut this entire section out, but I'm not the best with a jigsaw, so I cut my straight lines with a table saw and then just used the jigsaw to cut the angles. There are a lot of ways to go about cutting this out, so whatever works for you, works. I used some painter's tape here to help prevent tear out on the top side while cutting with a jigsaw. Then I proceeded to apply edge banding on the top edges of each side of the box. Edge banding is always optional, but it does look a little cleaner, so I like to add it. I have a complete guide to applying edge banding that I will link in the description if you're interested in learning more about it. Now, because I didn't want Lou to get any splinters in her new bed, I was sure to sand all of the box pieces well and smooth out the edge banding. Then I drilled pocket holes along the edges of the bottom panel, inside the front edges of the sides, and into the ends of the back piece. I assembled this plywood box using pocket hole screws, keeping the holes positioned on the bottom side of the bottom panel and on the insides of the box. That way they'll all be hidden. Now it's time to add the base, but for the elevated base of this project, I used some basic 2x2s. I actually had these as scrap pieces that I removed from a previous project, but you can purchase pre-cut 2x2s or make your own from a 2x4 if you don't already have any scrap pieces. I built this base to match my coffee tables from a previous video, so I cut the legs and the X pieces with mitered ends 10 degrees, just like I did with those. 100% honest here, I was just winging this part of the project. I didn't do any figuring here, and I just kind of worked it out. So I've marked my center line on this board, and I've got it pretty close to the center line on this board. This is just a dog bed, it doesn't have to be exact, but this was a 20-degree cut, and that seems to work pretty well. So I'm gonna make a mark down here for where to cut my leg. 10 degrees, should go that way. We're gonna say close to this area. I went back after the fact and I drew this out and figured all the angles in the plans that I've linked on my website so that you have them, but this is just a friendly reminder that it's okay to wing it sometimes, have fun in the build, and just make things work. All right, so I have my X main brace here, and then I have I cut these like 5 inches long from this end to this end with 10-inch bevels to match the legs so that they'll sit just like this and angle out. To keep things super simple, I just glued and screwed these legs into the main X pieces along the top. Then I glued and screwed the X together at the center. Now, obviously, there are a lot more technical ways that you could have joined all of these pieces together, but keep in mind, this is a dog bed, and you don't have to make this really complicated. However, if you want to, feel free. The angle in the video was not the best to show you how I did this, so I was going to just clarify here. I drove a screw this way through this board into this board to attach it and use some glue. And then I glued and drove a screw this way through this board into this board to attach it. And at the time, it was pretty flimsy and I was going to take it apart and redo it today, but when I came out here and the glue had dried, it's actually pretty solid. I don't think I'm gonna take it apart and redo it. I think with the glue, this really did sturdy up, I guess is a term that I'll use for that. But I did set the dog bed on top of it and I stood on it, and I weigh about twice as much as Lucy, so I know that this will hold Lucy. Of course, if you wanted a stronger joint here, you could use like half laps or another joinery method, but this is a dog bed and I'm not super concerned about it. Once the main X was together, I added these little 1.5-inch square riser blocks, and this is purely for design. I added these on the coffee table so that the tops kind of look like they're floating, but just so they matched, I added them here. Again, these are just optional. After the glue was dry, I sanded it smooth and stained the base with an ebony stain, again, to match the coffee table bases. Then I placed the box on top and centered it. I used some screws to attach the box to each riser block on the base, and then it was ready to test. I did go back and seal everything with a clear coat just to make things easier to clean in the future, but after that I added her bed and let her give it a test drive on her own. I think she's really enjoyed being elevated off the floor with her old bed, so now that she hangs out with us in multiple rooms of the house, I knew she would need a second one after we moved. She's clearly not spoiled at all. I hope you guys enjoyed this small kickoff project to our larger living room update, and if you have a pet of your own, I hope you give this fun and simple project a try. Don't forget to head over and check out the plans linked below, and be sure to subscribe to see it and all the other living room projects in the future videos in the new house. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building!